Captain Lee Minho stared at the strange readings on his screen. His exploration ship Horizon Dawn was 3 days out from Earth's furthest colony when the sensors picked up something that shouldn't be there. A ship, but not like any human vessel he had ever seen. "Captain, we have a problem," called out Communications Officer Park Ji-woo from her station. Her voice carried worry. "That ship is badly damaged. Hull breaches on multiple decks. Life support is failing." Minho moved closer to look at the data. The vessel was unlike anything in Earth's databases. It had smooth curves where human ships had sharp angles. Strange symbols covered its hull instead of letters and numbers. Most importantly, it was dying in the cold emptiness of space. "Are there survivors?" he asked. Park Ji-woo worked at her console, trying to get clearer readings. "I'm detecting at least one life form, maybe two, but the signals are very weak." Minho knew the rules. First contact with alien species required extreme caution. Earth's government had clear protocols about unknown vessels. Report the contact. Wait for instructions. Do not engage without permission. But following those rules meant watching whoever was on that ship die while they waited for orders from headquarters. "How long do they have?" he asked. Engineer Kim Soo-young looked up from his damage assessment. "At the rate they're losing atmosphere, maybe 2 hours, 3 at most." The bridge fell silent. Every crew member understood what was happening. They were the only ship in range. If they followed protocol and waited for orders, the aliens would be dead long before help could arrive. Minho made his decision. "Prepare the shuttle bay. We're bringing them aboard." "Sir," Park Ji-woo said carefully, "regulations state that we should report first contact situations too." "I know what the regulations say," Minho interrupted, "but I also know what's right. No being should die alone in space when we can help them." The rescue took nearly an hour. The alien ship was too damaged to dock properly, so they had to use cutting tools to reach the survivors. When they finally broke through the hull, they found 2 beings unlike anything they had imagined. The aliens were tall and thin, with skin that seemed to shimmer like oil on water. Their faces had features that were almost human but not quite right. Their eyes were larger than human eyes, and their hands had 6 fingers instead of 5. Most surprising of all, they seemed to glow with a soft inner light. The first alien was unconscious and badly injured. The second one, though weak, was still awake. When he saw the human rescue team, his large eyes widened with what looked like surprise and hope. Medical Officer Dr. Kong Haijin worked quickly to stabilize both aliens. Their biology was completely different from humans, but the basics of trauma care seemed to work. Stop the bleeding, support breathing, keep them warm. The conscious alien watched everything with keen intelligence. Once they were safely aboard Horizon Dawn, the real challenge began. How do you communicate with a being from another world? The ship's computer tried to analyze the alien's language, but it would take time to build a working translator. The conscious alien seemed to understand their problem. He pointed to himself and spoke a single word that sounded like Veltzar. Then he pointed to his unconscious companion and said what might have been another name. "I think he's telling us their names," Park Ji-woo suggested. Minho nodded to the alien and pointed to himself. "Minho," he said clearly. Then he gestured around the bridge. "Human." Veltar's eyes brightened. He repeated the word human several times, as if testing how it felt in his mouth. Then he spoke a longer phrase in his own language. The computer was already working on translation, but it would be hours before they could have a real conversation. Over the next day, as the ship's medical bay worked to heal Veltar's companion, basic communication slowly became possible. Veltar, it turned out, was some kind of diplomat. He had been carrying important peace treaties when his ship was attacked by raiders. His mission was to prevent his home world from being conquered by a powerful empire. "My people will ask why you helped strangers," Veltar said through the crude translator once it started working properly. "What should I tell them? Minho thought about this question. Why had he risked his ship and crew for beings he had never seen before? Why had he ignored regulations and protocol to save lives? Tell them, he said finally, that any being deserves help when they are dying. It doesn't matter what they look like or where they come from. Life is precious. Veltar stared at him for a long moment. When he spoke again, his words came through the translator with unusual clarity. Captain Lee Minho, of the humans, he said. Formally, the Ashanti Coalition will remember this kindness. We do not forget debts of honor. 3 days later, after repairs were completed, using both human and alien technology, Veltar's ship was ready to continue its journey. As he prepared to leave, the alien diplomat clasped Minho's hand in what seemed to be a universal gesture of friendship. Until we meet again, Veltar said. Minho watched the strange ship disappear into hyperspace, wondering if he would ever see his new friend again. 3 years had passed since Captain Lee Minho's encounter with the alien diplomat. Earth had changed completely during that time. What started as humanity's first contact with alien life had opened the door to an entire galaxy full of different species and civilizations. Admiral Kim Soo-jin walked through the corridors of Nexus Station, the massive space station that served as the center of galactic politics. She was Earth's chief representative to the Galactic Council, a job that had proven much harder than anyone expected when she first accepted it. The other species treated humans like children. They spoke to her with barely hidden contempt, as if she represented some primitive tribe that had accidentally discovered space travel. In their eyes, humanity was nothing more than a curiosity from a backwater planet. Admiral called Lieutenant Choi Hae-won as he hurried to catch up with her. The council session is about to begin. Are you ready for this? Soo-jin straightened her uniform and nodded grimly. Today's meeting would determine whether Earth lived or died as a free world. For months, intelligence reports had been coming in about massive fleet movements near human space. The Iron Dominion, a vast empire that had been conquering worlds for over 1,000 years, was preparing to add Earth to its collection. The council chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of different worlds. Soo-jin took her place at the small desk reserved for Earth, surrounded by the elaborate seating areas of much older and more powerful civilizations. Counselor, Beckstar of the Hegemony Worlds, called the session to order. He was a massive creature, with thick gray skin and small black eyes that never seemed to blink. When he spoke, his voice boomed across the chamber. We are here to discuss the Iron Dominion's territorial claims in the Sol system, he announced. The Dominion has filed proper legal documents claiming the system's resources for development by superior civilizations. Soo-jin stood up quickly. Superior civilizations. Earth is home to 8 billion human beings. We have every right to defend our world. A wave of what sounded like laughter rippled through the chamber. Several alien representatives made noises that their translators couldn't even convert into words. The humans have occupied their space for less than 200 years, said Counselor Murthak of the Crystal Syndicate. The Iron Dominion has been expanding across the galaxy for millennia. They have the legal right to claim underdeveloped systems. Underdeveloped. Soo-jin's voice rose with anger. We have colonies on dozens of worlds. We have trade agreements with multiple species. How is that underdeveloped? Beckstar's black eyes fixed on her with what might have been amusement. Your species has no significant military power. You have no major allies among the established civilizations. You control only a tiny fraction of local space. By galactic law, the Iron Dominion's claim is valid. Soo-jin looked around the chamber, hoping to see at least one friendly face among the hundreds of alien representatives. But every species that met her gaze quickly looked away. None of them wanted to anger the Iron Dominion by supporting humanity. The vote will be held now, Beckstar announced. All in favor of recognizing the Iron Dominion's legal claim to the Sol system. Hundreds of hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose into the air. The chamber's computer counted the votes automatically, all opposed. Sujin raised her hand. She was the only one. The motion passes by overwhelming majority, Bexstar declared. The Galactic Council recognizes the Iron Dominion's right to claim and develop the Sol system. This session is closed. As the alien representatives began filing out of the chamber, many of them looked at Sujin with what she could only describe as pity. To them, she represented a doomed species that had been foolish enough to think it could survive among the great powers of the galaxy. Lieutenant Choi approached her as the chamber emptied. "Admiral, we're receiving urgent messages from Earth's Fleet Command. Long-range sensors have detected massive Iron Dominion fleet movements. They're massing ships at the border." Sujin felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. How many ships? Over 3,000 vessels, including their largest battlecruisers. Intelligence estimates they'll begin their advance within the week. They walked together toward the station's communication center, where Sujin would have to deliver the worst news in human history to Earth's leaders. As they passed through the station's main corridor, she could hear alien representatives discussing the situation in casual tones. Another primitive species that thought it could challenge the Dominion, one of them was saying, "They never learn." "How long do you think the humans will last?" asked another. "A few days. Maybe a week. Less than that. The Dominion doesn't waste time with weak opponents." Sujin stopped walking and turned to face the aliens who were discussing her species like some kind of entertainment. They fell silent when they saw the look in her eyes. "You think this is funny?" she asked quietly. "You think watching an entire civilization die is amusing?" The aliens shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. "We may be young," Sujin continued, her voice growing stronger. "We may not have your ancient technologies or your vast fleets, but we are not going to die quietly. The Iron Dominion is about to learn what humans are really made of." She turned and walked away, leaving the alien representatives staring after her in silence. Behind her, she could hear them whispering among themselves, but she no longer cared what they thought. In the communication center, Sujin composed a message to Earth that would change the course of human history. "Prepare for war. We stand alone, but we will not surrender." Ambassador Veltar stood in the great hall of the Ashanti High Council, his crystalline skin reflecting the ancient lights that had burned for 1,000 years. Around him, the 12 elders of his people sat in their traditional circle, their faces showing concern and confusion at his unusual request. Elder Kamran, the oldest and most respected member of the council, spoke first. "Veltar, you are asking us to risk our entire fleet for a species we barely know. The humans have been part of the galactic community for only 3 years. Why should we involve ourselves in their war?" Veltar had expected this question. He had spent days preparing for this moment, knowing that the fate of humanity might depend on his words. He activated the holographic display in the center of the circle and began to tell his story. 3 years ago, I was dying in space," he said simply. "My ship had been attacked by raiders. My escort was destroyed. My life support was failing, and I had perhaps 2 hours before death took me." The elders leaned forward, paying close attention. They all knew this story, but they had never heard it told in full detail before. "A human exploration ship found me," Veltar continued. "The captain was a man named Lee Min-ho. By their laws, he should have reported the contact and waited for orders. But he knew I would be dead before help could arrive." The holographic display showed images from that fateful day. Security footage from the human ship revealed everything. Minho's quick decision to rescue the dying alien, his crew working without rest to repair Veltar's damaged vessel, Dr. Kong treating injuries she had never seen before with gentle care. "He owed me nothing," Veltar said, his voice growing stronger. "His people gained nothing from saving me. There was no trade agreement between our species, no political advantage, no reward waiting for him. Yet he risked his ship, his crew, and his career to pull a stranger from the void. Elder Shantara, the youngest member of the council, spoke up. But Veltar, one act of kindness cannot justify risking our entire civilization. The Iron Dominion has conquered hundreds of worlds. They have never been defeated. What can our small fleet possibly accomplish? Veltar smiled, remembering something Captain Minho had said during those first difficult hours of communication. The human captain told me something when I asked why he helped a stranger. He said that life is precious, no matter where it comes from or what it looks like. He said any being deserves help when they are dying. The holographic display changed, showing news footage from the past week. Iron Dominion fleets massing at the border of human space. Conquered worlds burning as their populations were enslaved or destroyed. The cold mechanical efficiency with which the Dominion eliminated entire civilizations. The Iron Dominion conquers. Through fear, Veltar continued. They succeed because species like ours choose to look away when others are threatened. We tell ourselves that it is not our problem, that we are too small to make a difference. But I have seen something different in humanity. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. The humans could have ignored my distress signal. They could have followed their protocols and left me to die. Instead, they chose to act, even though it meant breaking their own rules. They showed me that sometimes doing what is right matters more than doing what is safe. Elder Colmarin shifted in his seat. Even if we wanted to help, our fleet has only 40 ships. The Iron Dominion has thousands. We would be throwing our lives away for nothing. Not for nothing, Veltar replied firmly, and not alone. I have spent the past 2 days sending messages across the galaxy. The Valkyrie owe us for the medical supplies we provided during their plague 20 years ago. The Zenthan remember how we shared our food when their crops failed. The Karathi have not forgotten our help rebuilding their cities after the asteroid strike. The display now showed a growing list of species names. Small civilizations, minor trading partners, forgotten allies who had received help from the Ashanti. Over the decades, each debt alone means little, Veltar admitted. But together, I have received responses from 37 different species. They remember our kindness, just as I remember humanity's kindness to me. Elder Shantara looked amazed. 37 species have agreed to fight. They have agreed to honor their debts, Veltar corrected. Some can only send a few ships. Others can provide supplies or medical support. But they are willing to stand with us, because we once stood with them. The council chamber fell silent as the elders considered this information. Finally, Elder Colmarin spoke again. And you believe this will be enough to stop the Iron Dominion? Veltar thought about Captain Minho, about the determination he had seen in human eyes during those crucial hours of first contact. I believe that sometimes the impossible becomes possible when good people choose to act instead of hiding. The humans taught me that. Elder Colmarin looked around the circle, meeting the eyes of each council member, all in favor of honoring our debt to humanity. 12 hands rose as one. Then it is decided, Colmarin announced. The Ashanti fleet will stand with Earth. May the stars guide us all. As the council session ended, Veltar felt a mixture of hope and fear. He had kept his promise to Captain Minho, but now came the hard part. They had to prove that kindness was stronger than conquest, that small acts of mercy could echo across the galaxy with enough force to stop an empire. The real test was just beginning. Commander Song Daehyun watched the tactical display with growing amazement as more ships dropped out of hyperspace near the Vega system. What had started as a desperate alliance between humanity and the small Ashanti fleet had grown into something nobody could have predicted. Sir, we now have ships from 43 different species, reported Tactical Officer Yoon Suri from her station. The latest arrivals are from the Karathi Republic. They brought 12 heavy cruisers. Daehyun nodded, still hardly believing what he was seeing. 2 weeks ago, Earth stood completely alone against the Iron Dominion. Now, as he looked at the combined fleet spread across his sensors, he counted over 800 vessels from dozens of worlds. "Commander," called Communications Officer Nam Tajan, "we're receiving a message from the Iron Dominion fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender." "Put it on screen," Daehyun ordered. The face that appeared was typical of Dominion commanders: cold, arrogant, and completely confident of victory. General Korvac had conquered 17 systems in the past 5 years alone. He had never lost a battle. "Human commander," Korvac said with obvious contempt, "you have gathered an impressive collection of inferior species to die with you. But this changes nothing. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Daehyun stood up slowly, making sure his own face showed no fear. "General Korvac, I have a message for you from Earth. We don't surrender." The Dominion general laughed, a harsh sound that filled the bridge. "Then you will learn why the Iron Dominion has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. Attack." The battle began with the Dominion doing exactly what they had done for centuries. Their massive ships moved forward in perfect formation, expecting the smaller vessels to scatter and panic. It was a tactic that had worked against every other species they had conquered. But the humans had studied every available record of Dominion battles. They knew how the Empire fought, and they had prepared something different. "All ships, execute formation," Delta 7 Daehyun commanded. "Human vessels take point positions. Allied ships, maintain protective screens around our support vessels." What happened next shocked the Iron Dominion commanders. Instead of fleeing or forming defensive clusters like other species, the combined fleet moved with precision and purpose. Human ships charged directly at the enemy formation, while their alien allies provided cover and support. The first exchange of fire lit up space with energy beams and explosions. But something was wrong from the Dominion's perspective. The humans weren't fighting like the peaceful, frightened civilizations they were used to conquering. "Enemy ships are not retreating," reported one of Korvac's officers with confusion. "They're actually advancing into our firing range." "Impossible," Korvac snarled. "No species is foolish enough to attack Dominion battlecruisers directly." But that was exactly what the humans were doing. Earth's military doctrine had been developed through centuries of warfare among their own species. They understood something the Dominion had forgotten in their long years of easy conquests. Sometimes, the best defense was a devastating attack. The human flagship Soul's Pride led the charge, its weapons tearing into the Dominion's lead vessel. Behind it, a dozen Earth destroyers followed, their captains showing the kind of aggressive tactics that had won battles on Earth's oceans long before humans reached the stars. "Ashanti Squadron, break left and target their support vessels," Daehyun commanded over the battle network. "Valkyrie Wings, keep those hospital ships protected. Zenton heavy cruisers, concentrate fire on their command ship." The alien species had never fought as part of such a coordinated force before. Their own military traditions were mostly defensive, designed to protect their home worlds rather than project power across space. But under human tactical leadership, they found themselves capable of things they had never imagined. Captain Yelanara of the Ashanti cruiser stars. Memory watched in amazement as her ship's weapons found their target again and again. The humans had somehow figured out exactly where each species' ships would be most effective. "Human tactical doctrine is remarkable," she reported to her crew. "They're using our strengths and covering our weaknesses perfectly." The tide of battle began to turn as the Iron Dominion's rigid formations started to break apart. Their commanders had no experience fighting an enemy that actually fought back with skill and determination. For the first time in centuries, Dominion ships began to retreat from a battle. "Sir?" Yoon Suri called out excitedly. "Enemy flagship is breaking off. They're actually retreating." Daehyun felt a surge of hope, but he knew this was just the beginning. "Signal all vessels. Reform ranks and prepare for pursuit. They'll regroup and come back with reinforcements." As the damaged Dominion fleet limped away from the battlefield, news of the victory spread quickly through the galaxy. For the first time in living memory, the Iron Dominion had been forced to withdraw from a battle. On the Bridge of Soul's Pride, Ambassador Veltar stood beside Commander Dahian, watching the enemy ships disappear into hyperspace. "Your species fights differently than any other I have seen," Veltar observed. "The Dominion has never faced an enemy like humanity." Dahian nodded grimly. "We learned to fight by fighting each other for thousands of years. We know that sometimes you have to risk everything to protect what matters." As reports came in from across the galaxy, they learned that 3 more species had pledged ships to their cause after hearing about the victory. The impossible was happening. The galaxy was beginning to believe that humanity might actually win, but Dahian knew the real test was still coming. The Iron Dominion would return with their full fleet, and then they would learn what Earth was truly capable of. Admiral Lee Minho stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought New Sol, watching through the viewports as the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for battle. 5 years had passed since he was a simple exploration captain who rescued a dying alien diplomat. Now he commanded the combined forces of over 60 different species, all united against the Iron Dominion's final assault on Earth. "Admiral," reported Communications Officer Nam Tae-jun, "long-range sensors are detecting hyperspace distortions. The Iron Dominion fleet is approaching." Minho nodded calmly. They had been preparing for this moment for months. Every ship captain knew their position. Every species understood their role. After losing 3 major battles to the human-led alliance, the Iron Dominion had gathered every available vessel for one massive attack that would either crush the rebellion or destroy their empire's reputation forever. "How many ships?" Minho asked. "Over 5,000 vessels, sir, including their personal guard fleet that has never left the Dominion home system before." The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Even with all their allies, the combined fleet had only 2,000 ships. They were outnumbered more than 2 to 1 by an enemy that had been conquering worlds for a millennium. "Signal all ship commanders," Minho ordered. "Prepare for final battle positions." As the fleet moved into formation, Minho thought about the long journey that had brought them to this moment. The desperate alliance that had started with Ambassador Veltar's call for help had grown beyond anyone's wildest imagination. Species that had never worked together before were now fighting side by side. Civilizations that had been enemies for centuries had put aside their differences to face a common threat. "Sir," called Tactical Officer Park So-young, "enemy fleet is dropping out of hyperspace now." The Iron Dominion fleet appeared like a dark cloud across the starfield. Their ships were massive and intimidating, built for conquest and designed to strike fear into anyone who saw them. At the center of the formation was the Eternal Dominion, a super dreadnought, larger than any ship ever built. "They're demanding our surrender," Nam Tajan reported. "Put it on screen," Minho said. Emperor Vexahan himself appeared on the display, his ancient face twisted with rage. For the first time in 1,000 years, someone had successfully challenged the Iron Dominion's power, and the Emperor had come, personally, to crush the rebellion. Human Admiral Vexahan's voice carried pure hatred. "You have caused enough damage to my empire. Surrender now, and I will allow your species to serve as slaves instead of dying completely." Minho looked directly into the Emperor's eyes without flinching. "Your Majesty, humanity has never bowed to tyrants. We're not going to start today. Then you will all die." Vexahan screamed. "Attack! Destroy every ship! Leave nothing alive!" The Iron Dominion fleet surged forward like a massive wave of destruction. Their formation was perfect, their weapons charged, their crews confident that this battle would end the same way as every other battle they had fought for centuries. But many had prepared a surprise that would change galactic history forever. "Execute Operation Starfall," he commanded quietly. What happened next had never been seen before in space warfare. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, or trying to outmaneuver them, the combined fleet did something completely unexpected. They scattered. But it wasn't a retreat. Every ship had specific coordinates and precise timing. Human vessels dove toward the enemy formation from above and below. Ashanti ships attacked from the sides in perfect coordination. Dozens of other species struck at exactly the right moment from angles the Dominion had never defended against. The result was chaos for the Iron Dominion fleet. Their perfect formation became a weakness as friendly ships collided with each other, trying to respond to attacks from every direction. Their massive size became a disadvantage as smaller, more agile vessels darted between their weapons. Target their command ship. Minho ordered as New Soul led a group of heavy cruisers straight at the Eternal Dominion. All weapons, maximum power. The space around Earth's sun became a battleground like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Explosions lit up the darkness as ships from both sides fought with desperate determination. But slowly, the tide began to turn in favor of the Alliance. Captain Velanara, of the Ashanti Cruiser Honors, Light watched in amazement as human tactical brilliance turned what should have been certain defeat into possible victory. "They're not just fighting to win," she reported to her crew. "They're fighting to protect every ship in this fleet." She was right. Human commanders were positioning their vessels to shield damaged Allied ships. Earth's medical vessels were rescuing survivors from any species, even risking themselves to save others. It was exactly the opposite of how the Iron Dominion fought, where weak ships were abandoned and only the strong survived. "Sir," Park Soyoung called out excitedly, "the enemy flagship is losing power. Their shields are failing." Minho watched as the Eternal Dominion began to drift, its weapons systems dark and lifeless. Around it, hundreds of Iron Dominion ships were either destroyed or fleeing the battlefield. "Signal all vessels," he ordered. "Cease fire, except surrender, from any ship that requests it." As the smoke cleared and the surviving Iron Dominion vessels fled into hyperspace, Ambassador Veltar joined Minho on the bridge. The crystalline being's features reflected the light of Earth's sun streaming through the viewport. "Captain Lee Minho," Veltar said quietly, using the title Minho had held when they first met. "5 years ago you saved a dying stranger when you had nothing to gain. Today, an entire galaxy learned what humanity truly represents." Minho looked out at the Allied fleet, maintaining formation around Earth. Former strangers now bound together by something stronger than fear or conquest. "The debt was never yours to repay, old friend," he replied with a smile. "But I'm grateful you chose to try."